Hello Animorphs fans and welcome to the first AniTheory video. I'm going to be doing a lot of these, mostly after I finish reviewing the series, but I wanted to do this one now. This series is basically going to be talking about Animorphs theories and ideas and seeing whether I agree with them or not, and then posing those questions to you. The first one today comes because of a tweet, or a couple of tweets, that Michael Grant put up on his Twitter. And those are as follows. A character greyer than you think. Cassie from Animorphs. In some ways, she's the most morally questionable, precisely because she's aware of moral grey zones that a sociopath like Marco isn't. She struggles with a sense of duty, love for Jake, affection for Rachel, tricking her parents even though they're good people, pushing to the limits of what she can justify and beyond. She's too tender for war, but she pushes through. Afterward, you know she'll suffer from memory, but she does a sort of penance by working with the Hawk-Bajir and rejects any credit. Now that post, those two posts were very much about Cassie, but there's one bit in that a lot of people sort of looked at and thought, ooh, is that really right? And that was when he said, she's aware of moral grey zones that a sociopath like Marco isn't. Michael Grant saying that Marco is a sociopath. So let's just explore that briefly today. Is Marco a sociopath? Just for a bit more clarification on Michael Grant's point, we'll go over a few more Twitter posts that followed on from this. So Legend replies, with all due respect to Michael Grant, if you look through definitions online, both medical and casual, Marco does in no way meet the definition of a sociopath. We are in his head and he clearly shows a capacity for deep empathy, even as he is a brilliant strategist. Zman966 replies, Marco exhibited plenty of sociopathic tendencies, but I always saw them as a coping mechanism. In a situation where empathy or sympathy is too much, you can swing wildly the opposite and go sarcastic callous to distance yourself from feeling because you know it'll overwhelm you. Legend replies back to that. I don't see how sociopathic tendencies can be a coping mechanism. Maybe I am too stuck in a medical mindset, it's my nature and my job, but being a sociopath is innate, not a learned behaviour in the face of severe and repeated trauma. Michael Grant replies, I disagree. I think sociopathy can perform like a mental app. When you need to quickly find the simplest line between A and B, regardless of right or wrong, you open the sociopathy app. Legend replies, I mean, even the nicest person can find the line from A to B if they are clever and have the right information. The sociopath app comes into play after the idea is formed, whether to go through with the idea or modify, reject it. I would probably call it the ruthless app. Michael Grant replies, people are terrible at finding the line from A to B. They start with what will people think and what's the norm and what do I wish the solution was, rather than what will work. Marco saw the line first and only then applied moral filters. Legend replies, is that really how other people think? Maybe I am a sociopath then. I mean, not really, I hope, but I've always been the A to B type. Then add in variables and adjust accordingly depending on importance. In medicine, that approach actually works well. Okay, so there's the context of the tweets. I will say there was another little bit, just for clarification on Michael Grant's part, because remember, you can only fit so many words into a Twitter post. Somebody said to him, I'm kind of surprised that you referred to Marco as sociopathic, though it makes sense. It changed my perspective on his character. Michael Grant replies, well, it was a bit of Twitter shorthand and oversimplification. Okay, before we actually look into what defines a sociopath, I'm going to give my initial thoughts. I do not believe that Marco is a sociopath, because when I'm going into this, my initial impression of a sociopath is somebody who shows no empathy, okay? Somebody who can't see things from other people's perspective, and it makes them impulsive, often violent, and careless when it comes to the people around them. I don't think Marco fits that. I understand where Michael is coming from, but yeah, I think he's right when he says it was an oversimplification, and probably quite a careless one, because sociopath is not a word that you throw around. I know he's a fictional character, so it's not like we're talking about a real person, so it doesn't matter that much. But calling Marco a sociopath and then calling it an oversimplification is a bit like, yeah, I don't know. It's like calling somebody a murderer and then saying, well, murderer is an oversimplification. No, he's either a murderer or he isn't, okay? So he's either a sociopath or he isn't. But what he's trying to get at is, he calls it the sociopathy app. So you're a phone, and occasionally when you're trying to do something, you'll open the sociopathy app, which gets you that mindset of A to B, okay? Some of the great sociopaths in history, people like Chairman Mao, probably Adolf Hitler, in fact I'm pretty sure he was a sociopath, Joseph Stalin, the big bads, essentially. A lot of them are sociopaths. And I've done a review, I think it was book 30, in fact it was book 30, where I almost compared Marco to Chairman Mao, obviously somewhat facetiously, but he has the A to B philosophy, and he mentions that a lot in that book. And yeah, it is a sociopathic sort of tendency, thing, trait. But does having that trait and utilising it when it's needed mean that you're a sociopath? I believe that you're a sociopath when you do it, even when there's better options or more fruitful options. Marco does recognise in the books a lot of the time the A's to the B's. He finds that route, and that's part of it. That's part of his role in the team, is to be the person to step back and look at a situation and say, hold on, that's how we do that to that. In that sense, I don't think it's a sociopathic trait. It's just being clever and being able to see through bullshit or complicated scenarios. So let's have a look at what defines a sociopath and truly see if Marco fits this definition. I'm on healthline.com, and it says, what is a sociopath? Sociopath is an informal term that's often used to refer to someone who has antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. ASPD is a personality disorder that involves a lack of empathy in addition to manipulative behaviours and impulsiveness in some people. From that first paragraph, it doesn't sound like Marco. In fact, it sounds more like Rachel. Lack of empathy, manipulative behaviour, impulsiveness. Rachel, of course, don't even need to explain the impulsive part. Manipulative behaviour. I think it's happened a couple of times. I wouldn't say it's a trend, so that's a bit iffy. I think book 37 was a demonstration of her more manipulative behaviours. But then again, is that book really canon? I don't know. Lack of empathy. I think sometimes there is a lack of empathy. So when she goes into battle and she just starts walloping left, right and centre, not taking into consideration who she's whacking. Yeah, they're yerks, but they're also innocent hosts in there, but she will barrel in regardless and probably take out more than is necessary, which shows a lack of empathy, as far as I'm concerned. The additional behaviours set it apart from other conditions such as autism, which can also cause a lack of empathy. Having empathy refers to being able to recognise and identify with the feelings of another person. When trying to identify someone as having ASPD, it's important to remember that this is a complex diagnosis, etc., etc. Let's just get to the signs of this disorder. Okay? The signs of ASPD can vary widely from person to person. In addition, one person's symptoms may change over time. When reading through these signs, keep in mind that all humans exhibit this kind of behaviour from time to time, especially when they're upset. They aren't always signs of ASPD, and this is where I think Michael Grant has it wrong. Like it says here, everybody dips into these traits now and again, the sociopath app. Doesn't mean they're a sociopath. Sociopath is where it's more consistent and it's a trend and you don't vary from that trend. The whole idea of a sociopath app is, as far as I'm concerned, a nonsense. It doesn't exist. Unlike someone having a particularly bad day, people with ASPD never feel any remorse for what they've said or done, even if it caused someone a great deal of harm. And I think that sentence there says, no, Marco is not a sociopath. And that disagrees with what Michael Grant has said. They never feel any remorse. And I think I think this disqualifies every Animorph of being a sociopath because they've all had moments where they have felt remorse for people, Marco included. And various things like empathy, Marco has demonstrated. Book 40, the other, at the end where he goes and finds Myrtle and he seeks him out and says, do you want to play a game when this is all over? Why does he do that? Because he feels he's got empathy. He knows, he has this big spiel about, oh, I hate being remembered as the kid whose mother died and people thinking just that of me. He thinks of Myrtle and it's, oh, I relate to him because people just know him as the Vicol, the disabled one. That's Marco showing empathy. So yeah, the symptoms for this, lack of empathy. One of the most notable symptoms is a lack of empathy. In response to another person's feelings, they may come across as cold, unfeeling, callous, overly critical, harsh. People with ASPD don't always realise how harmful their actions are. In other cases, they may simply not care that their actions hurt someone. We have seen this from Marco. Remember David? I think one of the big reasons David turned out the way he did is because of Marco's initial confrontation with him, where he's just been taken from his parents who have now been turned into slaves, and he just goes in cold, hard and brutal. Yeah, that was lack of empathy from Marco. So from that point of view, if you looked at just that, you'd say this guy seems quite sociopathic, but that ignores everything else. He probably just didn't like David. And maybe he didn't like David because maybe David is a sociopath and Marco saw that and he didn't like him. That's my theory. Symptom 2, disregard for right and wrong. People with this generally have no regard for boundaries, rules or laws. Someone with ASPD may lie, cheat, steal from others, break laws, be in constant legal trouble, be in and out of jail for major to minor crimes. When disregarding right and wrong, people with ASPD usually don't consider the short or long-term consequences of their actions. This, I do not believe, applies to Marco. Number 3, now this one does apply to Marco. Wit and charm. In addition to their more negative behaviours, people with ASPD often come off as very charismatic and charming. They may use humour, flattery, intellect or flirtation for personal gain. In other cases, they might use these techniques to get someone to do something that's harmful to them. He does a lot of that sort of stuff, but does he do it for personal gain or to get someone to do something for them? No. Not really, he's just humorous like that. So it sort of does apply, but also sort of doesn't. Number 4, impulsiveness. People with ASPD tend to act without considering the consequences. They might regularly engage in life-threatening activities without considering their own safety or the safety of anyone else involved. This impulsiveness and disregard of consequences puts people with ASPD at a high risk of developing an addiction to a substance or behaviour such as gambling. Rachel has this, Marco doesn't. 5, arrogance. Axe has this. People with ASPD may act as if they're above those around them. In addition to acting extra confident, they may also be condescending or easily irritated by others, especially those who disagree with them. And number 6, aggression. People with ASPD are often physically or verbally abusive. Right, okay, so 6 things there. I'd say Marco fits 2 of them sometimes. So I'm calling it AniTheory verdict. Marco is not a sociopath. Rachel fits more of these characteristics than Marco does, and I wouldn't call her a sociopath either, because she does have empathy for others, and I think that is the big one. That's the big symptom, lack of empathy. David, you can make a very clear case, I believe, for being a sociopath. Does he have a lack of empathy? We've seen that pretty much, yes. We don't see much empathy from him at all. Disregard for right and wrong, yes. Wit and charm. He did have a few jokes here and there. Not so much as Marco, though, but sort of half-half. Impulsiveness, yes, when he went to go to the motel. Arrogance, not so much that one. And aggression, yes. So I think you can make quite a clear case that David was a sociopath, but I'm calling it Marco is not a sociopath. We've seen plenty of examples of him showing empathy for others. He clearly knows the difference between right and wrong. He's not very arrogant. He's not particularly aggressive. And he's not particularly impulsive either. The big thing that makes him look like a sociopath is his insistence on the A to B method, but we've seen that he does override that and he feels remorse, like in book 30 where he got the park ranger killed from his plan. If you remember the visual thing he got from that, the imagery he got in his head, where he had this line from A to B and then it was all up in flames after this park ranger got killed. That's showing clear remorse, guilt for getting this man killed because of his A to B plan. So Marco showed remorse for the consequences of his A to B plan. Now, just for a fun bit at the end of this video, I want to bring to attention another reply that somebody gave to Michael Grant after this particular comment. This person replies, Cassie often gave the enemy massive war-altering advantages and was never even remotely held accountable for it. The fact that she's okay with herself after the war is the most damning evidence of her being a sociopath. She literally can't see she did anything wrong. There's always one person who goes and presses the special button, isn't there? There's always that one. If Jarahami wrote this, you'd assume he was having a stroke. This just unintelligent garbage post. I mean, I don't even really need to entertain this comment. It's just completely absurd, but I'm just, for the sake of fun, I'm going to. Cassie is not a sociopath. Okay, let's see if she fits the criteria for these things. Lack of empathy. No. Disregard for right and wrong. No. Wit and charm. Certainly not. Impulsiveness, no. Arrogance, no. Aggression, no. Cassie fulfills 0 of the traits for a sociopath. So let's go over this clown's post in detail. She often gave the enemy massive war-altering advantages. Once, okay? That doesn't really count as often, does it? And was never even remotely held accountable for it. Yes, she was. By the rest of the team. I mean, what did you want? Did you want her to get arrested after the war? You know, the fact that she's okay with herself after the war is the most damning evidence of her being a sociopath. She was okay with herself. Did this person not read 54? She literally can't see she did anything wrong. That's the worst part of this post. I've just finished reading 41. She had a complete mental breakdown because she killed 4 or 5 Hawkwigear. There's always one person that comes along with the intellectual equivalent of grated cheese, isn't there? But you've just got to ignore those people. So anyway, that's the first episode of AniTheory. Join me for the next one, whenever it may be. There'll probably be many more of these after I finish reading the main series. I'm up to 42 now, so it's not too far away. And we will cover a lot more things. If you want to give me suggestions for things you want me to cover in these, to gather the evidence and have a little bit of a verbal play with it, then please do tell me in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!